morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in time and space. Welcome to Story Time with the No Fairy today. Today we'll be picking up chapter 14 of the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. Greetings, forever love, my darling. It's always such a pleasure to see you. We had the rainbows all set up, but the sun keeps peeking in and out behind the clouds. I am hoping that works in our favor today because you can see it already a little bit. So I don't have very many studio lights on at all. We're just relying on what comes in through the window so that I get a rainbow every now and then. Wee-hoo! Hey, Skull Asylum! Nice to see you. I'm going to pick some music and get everything going. I just decided to do this kind of on the fly today because we haven't had sun in a couple of days. And when I saw the rainbows finally coming back through my window because of my big crystal display there, it made me happy. Otherwise, I was going to go back to bed today. I really was because been a whole lot of suck. So let's pick some music, shall we? I typically like lo-fi. Let's check that out for a minute. We'll see how it is. Test the coffee. No. I love the rainbows and the sparklies. Oh. This is how you turn a frown upside down. Yeah, I need a little bit more sweet in there. That's just not quite good enough. Let's try that now. Oh, and remember to move it back out of the way for safety. Let's put it back there. Perhaps that as well. We don't want it to fall out of the tree. Better put it back on the platform there. Okay. So is that music pretty good for y'all? You like it? Good level? And all those good things? Ooh, I'm so sparkly today. Clean listeners? Oh, good. Okay. Well, we're doing pretty good. We've only been live for 3 minutes. I'm going to give it just a few more moments to see if anybody else joins us before we begin. But no more than 5, and I'll begin. Still getting all comfy. I think this ought to do. Every time I think I'm comfortable here, I do some silly prop that I haven't rehearsed beforehand, and I end up having to move everything on the fly. It's very annoying. I am going to move this keyboard. I know that gets in my way every time. Check out those rainbows, yo. It's a beautiful day here in Neverland. I love it. Oh, aren't they pretty? And this is my advice for those of you, my friends in cold climates. Line your windows with beautiful prism crystals and things that catch the light and bounce it all over. I also like to, in main rooms, use a lot of yellow. It makes the eyes happy. Okay. Let's continue. Chapter 14. Oh, wait. Let me give you a quick recap for those of you who haven't tuned in before. Hello, ethereal light being Tame. All right, sounds good? You enjoy. When we last left our tales, I don't know if they're heroes or anti-heroes. They ate somebody. They had been at sea for a long time. They had been through a lot, and they ate their buddy. Chapter 14. The Jane Guy was a fine-looking topsail schooner of 180 tons burden. She was unusually sharp in the bows, and on a wind, in moderate weather, the fastest sailor I have ever seen. Her qualities, however, as a rough sea boat were not so good, and her draught of water was by far too great for the trade to which she was destined. I need something here to mark my place as I read. There we go. For this peculiar service, a larger vessel and one of a light proportionate draught is desirable, say a vessel of from 300 to 350 tons. Should she be bark-rigged and in other respects of a different construction from the usual South Sea ships, it is absolutely necessary that she should be well armed. She should have, say, 10 or 12-pound carronades and 2 or 3 long 12s with brass blunderbusses and watertight arm chests for each top. Her anchors and cables should be of far greater strength than is required for any other species of trade, and above all, her crew should be numerous and efficient, not less, for such a vessel as I have described, than 50 or 60 able-bodied men. The Jane Guy had a crew of 35, all able seamen, besides the captain and mate, but she was not altogether as well armed or otherwise equipped as a navigator acquainted with the difficulties and dangers of the trade could have desired. Ah, now we're cooking. Yes, that will work nicely. Hello, Richie. Nice to see you. I'm glad you could join us. Captain Guy was a gentleman of great urbanity of manner and of considerable experience in the southern traffic, to which he had devoted the greater portion of his life. He was deficient, however, in energy, and consequently in that spirit of enterprise which is here so absolutely requisite. He was part owner of the vessel in which he sailed, and was invested with discretionary powers to cruise in the South Seas for any cargo which might come most readily to hand. He had on board as usual in such voyages, beads, looking-glasses, tinder-works, axes, hatchets, saws, adze, planes, chisels, gouges, gimlets, files, spoke-shaves, rasps, hammers, nails, knives, scissors, razors, needles, thread, crockeryware, calico, trinkets, and other similar articles. I'm actually not digging this music. Let me change it. It's moved a bit too fast. I'm going to go back to down tempo, but it seems like they're all moving a little faster today. I don't know. Maybe that's just me because I'm really loosey-goosey, tired. The schooner sailed from Liverpool on the 10th of July, crossed the Tropic of Cancer on the 25th in longitude 20 degrees west, and reached Sal, one of the Cape Verde Islands, on the 29th, where she took in salt and other necessities for the voyage. On the 3rd day of August, she left Cape Verde and steered southwest, stretching over toward the coast of Brazil, so as to cross the equator between the meridians of 28 and 30 degrees west longitude. This is the course usually taken by vessels bound from Europe to the Cape of Good Hope, or by that route to the East Indies. By proceeding thus, they avoid the calms and strong contrary currents which continually prevail on the coast of Guinea, while in the end it is found to be the shortest track, as westerly winds are never wanting afterward by which to reach the Cape. It was Captain Guy's intention to make his first stoppage at Kerguelen's Land, I hardly know for what reason. On the day we were picked up, the schooner was off Cape St. Roque. in longitude 31 degrees west, so that when found, we had drifted probably from north to south, not less than 25 degrees. Hi, Just JP. On board the Jane Guy, we were treated with all the kindness our distressed situation demanded. In about a fortnight, during which time we continued steering to the southeast with gentle breezes and fine weather, both Peters and myself recovered entirely from the effects of our late privation and dreadful suffering, and we began to remember what had passed rather as a frightful dream from which we had been happily awakened, than as events which had taken place in sober and naked reality. I have since found that this species of partial oblivion is usually brought about by sudden transition, whether from joy to sorrow, or from sorrow to joy, the degree of forgetfulness being proportioned to the degree of difference in the exchange. Thus, in my own case, I now feel it impossible to realize the full extent of the misery which I endured during the days spent upon the hulk. The incidents are remembered, but not the feelings which the incidents elicited at the time of their occurrence. I only know that when they did occur, I then thought human nature could sustain nothing more of agony. Yep, the good old fuck it bucket. We continued our voyage for some weeks without any incident of greater moment than the occasional meeting with whaling ships, and more frequently with the black or right whale, so called in contradistinction to the spermaceti. These, however, were chiefly found south of the 25th parallel. On the 16th day of September, being in the vicinity of the Cape of Good Hope, the schooner encountered her first gale of any violence since leaving Liverpool. In this neighborhood, but more frequently to the south and east of the promontory, we were to the westward, navigators have often to contend with storms from the northward, which rage with great fury. They always bring with them a heavy sea, and one of their most dangerous features is the instantaneous chopping round of the wind, an occurrence almost certain to take place during the greatest force of the gale. A perfect hurricane will be blowing at one moment from the northward or northeast, and in the next not a breath of wind will be felt in that direction, while from the southwest it will come out all at once with a violence almost inconceivable. A bright spot to the southward is a sure forerunner of the change, and vessels are thus enabled to take the proper precautions. Do you see what I mean about how the music is speeding up? And I've used this music selection a few times. Strange. Sorry, I have to kind of look over my book easel. It was about 6 a.m. when the blow came on with a white squall, and as usual from the northward. By 8, it had increased very much and brought down upon us one of the most tremendous seas I had then ever beheld. Everything had been made as snug as possible, but the schooner labored excessively and gave evidence of her bad qualities as a sea-boat, pitching her forecastle under at every plunge, and with the greatest difficulty struggling up from one wave before she was buried in another. Just before sunset, the bright spot for which we had been on the lookout made an appearance in the southwest, and in an hour afterward we perceived the little headsail we carried flapping listlessly against the mast. In 2 minutes more, in spite of every preparation, we were hurled on our beam ends as if by magic, and a perfect wilderness of foam made a clear breach over us as we lay. The blow from the southwest, however, luckily proved to be nothing more than a squall, and we had the good fortune to ride the vessel without the loss of a spar. A heavy cross sea gave us great trouble for a few hours after this, but toward morning we found ourselves in nearly as good condition as before the gale. Captain Guy considered that he had made an escape little less than miraculous. On the 13th of October, we came in sight of Prince Edward Island in latitude 46 by 53 south, longitude 37 by 46 east. 2 days afterward, we found ourselves near Possession Island and presently past the island of Crozet in latitude 42 by 59 south, longitude 48 east. On the 18th, we made Kerguelians, or Desolation Island, in the southern Indian Ocean and came to anchor in Christmas Harbor, having 4 fathoms of water. This island, or rather group of islands, bears southeast from the Cape of Good Hope and is distant therefrom nearly 800 leagues. It was first discovered in 1772 by the Baron de Kerguelen, or Kerguelen, a Frenchman who, thinking the land to form a portion of an extensive southern continent, carried home information to that effect, which produced much excitement at the time. The government, taking the matter up, sent the Baron back in the following year for the purpose of giving his new discovery a critical examination, when the mistake was discovered. In 1777, Captain Cook fell in with the same group and gave to the principal one the name of Desolation Island, a title which it certainly well deserves. Upon approaching the land, however, the navigator might be induced to suppose otherwise, as the sides of most of the hills, from September to March, are clothed with very brilliant greenness. This deceitful appearance is caused by a small plant resembling saxifrage, which is abundant, growing in large patches on a species of crumbling moss. Besides this plant, there is scarcely a sign of vegetation on the island, if we except some coarse rank grass near the harbor, some lichen, and a shrub which bears resemblance to a cabbage shooting into seed, and which has a bitter and acrid taste. Oh, just a moment, I think I've heard something. It's a ring at the door. Who could it be? Oh, we have a visitor. Hold on a moment. Let me see if I can tether you off, my friend. Oh, that was terribly done. It's our good friend, Keif. What have you got for me there, Keif?
Oi, it's me, Keif. I brought you a special gift to help you read better.
You did? Oh, Keif. Who's that you've got with you today, Keif?
I don't know, she's just some bird.
You gonna stay around and smoke with me today?
Nah, me and me bird are off to do daddy bird stuff. I just brought you a little gift, and I'm on my way. I'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks. See you later, Keith. I like this background too. It works with just about everything. That's right, I'm a card. A wild card. And I'm about to knock down the whole house of cards and watch it come crashing down. Piper burns. Okay, where was our space? Having 4 fathoms of water. The face of the country is hilly, although none of the hills can be called lofty. Their tips are perpetually covered with snow. There are several harbors, of which Christmas Harbor is the most convenient. It is the first to be met with on the northeast side of the island after passing Cape Francis, which forms the northern shore, and by its peculiar shape serves to distinguish the harbor. Its projecting point terminates in a high rock, through which is a large hole, forming a natural arch. The entrance is in latitude 48 by 40 south, longitude 69 by 6 east. Passing in here, good anchorage may be found under the shelter of several small islands, which form a sufficient protection from all easterly winds. Proceeding on eastwardly from this anchorage, you will come to Wasp Bay at the head of the harbor. This is a small basin, completely landlocked, into which you can go with 4 fathoms and find anchorage in from 10 to 3 hard clay bottom. A ship might lie here with her best bower ahead all the year round without risk. To the westward, at the head of Wasp Bay, is a small stream of excellent water, easily procured. Some seal of the fur and hair species are still to be found on Kerguelen Island, and sea elephants abound. The feathered tribes are discovered in great numbers. Penguins are very plentiful, and of these there are 4 different kinds. Excuse me. The royal penguin, so called from its size and beautiful plumage, is the largest. The upper part of the body is usually gray, sometimes of a lilac tint. This under portion of the purest white imaginable. The head is of a glossy and most brilliant black, the feet also. The chief beauty of the plumage, however, consists in 2 broad stripes of gold color, which pass along from the head to its breast. The bill is long and either pink or bright scarlet. These birds walk erect with a stately carriage. They carry their heads high, with their wings drooping like 2 arms, and as their tails project from their body in a line with the legs, the resemblance to a human figure is very striking, and would be apt to deceive the spectator at a casual glance or in the gloom of the evening. The royal penguins, which we met with on Kerguelen land, were rather larger than a goose. The other kinds are the macaroni, the jackass, and the rookery penguin. These are much smaller, less beautiful in plumage, and different in other respects. Besides the penguin, many other birds are here to be found, among which may be mentioned sea hens, blue peterels, teal, ducks, Port Egmont hens, shags, Cape pigeons, the Nellie, sea swallows, terns, seagulls, Mother Carey's chickens, Mother Carey's geese, or the great peterel, and lastly, the albatross. The great peterel is as large as common albatross and is carnivorous. It is frequently called the breakbones or osprey peterel. They are not at all shy, and when properly cooked are palatable food. In flying, they sometimes sail very close to the surface of the water, with the wings expanded, without appearing to move them in the least degree, or make any exertion with them whatever. I hope the sun comes back a little brighter. Something in my eye. The albatross is one of the largest and fiercest of the South Sea birds. It is of the gull species and takes its prey on the wing, never coming on land except for the purpose of breeding. Between this bird and the penguin, the most singular friendship exists. Their nests are constructed with great uniformity upon a plan concerted between the 2 species, that of the albatross being placed in the center of a little square formed by the nests of 4 penguins. Navigators have agreed in calling an assemblage of such encampments a rookery. These rookeries have been often described, but as my readers may not all have seen these descriptions, and I shall have occasion hereafter to speak of the penguin and albatross, it will not be amiss to say something here of their mode of building and living. Hello, peace and power, London McLovin. Right back at ya, bro. Okay. When the season for incubation arrives, the birds assemble in vast numbers and for some days appear to be deliberating upon the proper course to be pursued. At length they proceed to action. A level piece of ground is selected of suitable extent, usually comprising 3 or 4 acres, and situated as near the sea as possible, being still beyond its reach. The spot is chosen with reference to its evenness of surface, and that is preferred which is the least encumbered with stones. This matter being arranged, the birds proceed with one accord and actuated apparently by one mind to trace out with mathematical accuracy either a square or other parallelogram as may best suit the nature of the ground, and of just sufficient size to accommodate easily all the birds assembled, and no more. In this particular, seeming determined upon preventing the access of future stragglers who have not participated in the labor of the encampment. One side of the place thus marked out runs parallel with the water's edge, and is left open for ingress or egress. Having defined the limits of the rookery, the colony now began to clear it of every species of rubbish, picking up stone by stone and carrying them outside of the lines and close by them, so as to form a wall around the 3 inland sides. Just within this wall, a perfectly level and smooth walk is formed from 6 to 8 feet wide and extending around the encampment, thus serving the purpose of a general promenade. The next process is to partition out the whole area into small squares exactly equal in size. This is done by forming narrow paths, very smooth, and crossing each other at right angles throughout the entire extent of the rookery. At each intersection of these paths, the nest of an albatross is constructed, and a penguin's nest in the center of each square. Thus, every penguin is surrounded by 4 albatrosses, and each albatross by a like number of penguins. The penguin's nest consists of a hole in the earth, very shallow, being only just of sufficient depth to keep the single egg from rolling. The albatross is somewhat less simple in her arrangements, erecting a hillock about a foot high and 2 in diameter. This is made of earth, seaweed, and shells. On its summit, she builds her nest. That's interesting. I didn't know that the penguin worked with the albatross to accomplish their breeding and safety. That's kind of cool. Oh, where have I put my lighter? Grandmother! Oh no. Grandmother Spider, are you around? No? I know. Perhaps we can call down the golden robot deity of the Ewoks. It should bring us some fire. Oh, spooky, spooky. Look at that magic. It's the Force or something. I don't know. I didn't rehearse a line for that. I just knew that she was up there with an extra lighter. Because I always leave myself extras. The birds take especial care never to leave their nests unoccupied for an instant during the period of incubation, or indeed until the young progeny are sufficiently strong to take care of themselves. While the male is absent at sea in search of food, the female remains on duty and is only upon the return of her partner that she ventures abroad. The eggs are never left uncovered at all. While one bird leaves the nest, the other nestling in by its side. Okay. This precaution is rendered necessary by the thievish propensities prevalent in the rookery, the inhabitants making no scruple to purloin each other's eggs at every good opportunity. Although there are some rookeries in which the penguin and albatross are the sole population, yet in most of them a variety of oceanic birds are to be met with, enjoying all the privileges of citizenship and scattering their nests here and there wherever they can find room, never interfering, however, with the stations of the larger species. The appearance of such encampments, when seen from a distance, is exceedingly singular. The whole atmosphere just above the settlement is darkened with the immense number of the albatross, mingled with the smaller tribes, which are continually hovering over it, either going to the ocean or returning home. At the same time, a crowd of penguins are to be observed, some passing to and fro in the narrow alleys, and some marching with the military strut so peculiar in them around the general promenade ground which encircles the rookery. In short, survey it as we will, nothing can be more astonishing than the spirit of reflection evinced by these feathered beings, and nothing surely can be better calculated to elicit reflection in every well-regulated human intellect. On the morning after our arrival in Christmas Harbor, the chief mate, Mr. Patterson, took the boats, and, although it was somewhat early in the season, went in search of seal, leaving the captain and a young relation of his on a point of barren land to the westward, they having some business whose nature I could not ascertain, to transact in the interior of the island. Captain Guy took with him a bottle in which was a sealed letter, and made his way from the point on which he was set on shore toward one of the highest peaks in the place. It is probable that his design was to leave the letter on that height for some vessel which he expected to come after him. As soon as we lost sight of him, we proceeded, Peters and myself being in the mate's boat, and our crews around the coast looking for seal. In this business we were occupied about 3 weeks, examining with great care every nook and corner, not only of Kerguelen land, but of several small islands in the vicinity. Our labors, however, were not crowned with any important success. We saw a great many fur seal, but they were exceedingly shy, and with the greatest exertions we could only procure 350 skins in all. Sea elephants were abundant, especially on the western coast of the mainland, but of these we killed only 20, and this with great difficulty. On the smaller islands we discovered a good many of the hair seal, but did not molest them. We returned to the schooner on the 11th, where we found Captain Guy and his nephew, who gave a very bad account of the interior, representing it as one of the most dreary and utterly barren countries in the world. They had remained 2 nights on the island, owing to some misunderstanding on the part of the second mate in regard to the sending a jolly boat from the schooner to take them off. Hi, Dean Kendall. Nice to see you today. Yes, 111, really? I hadn't looked, so that's lucky. Yay. 111. Oh, we'll have to have 11 Z's for that. Cheers. Let's get a refill. It is 1 o'clock. We've been reading for half an hour. That's a good time to get a warm-up on the coffee. Yes. I am so very sleepy. But this will be probably my final cup today. I am gonna try to, rest my adrenals and all that stuff. When I take a break from coffee, I have to gradually have less over the course of a couple days, though, or I get a headache. Oh no, I got tangled. Oops. That happens here all the time. I'll have some stupid elaborate hairdo going, and I'll go to get something and my hair gets stuck in my spiders and props up there. It's so fun. That's lovely. Okay. Ooh, yeah, and my shoulder is killing me. Oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. I'm doing all I can. This is where we begin chapter 15. On the 12th, we made sail from Christmas Harbor, retracing our way to the westward and leaving Marion's Island, one of Crozet's group, on the larboard. We afterward passed Prince Edward Island, leaving it also on our left. Then, steering more to the northward, made in 15 days the islands of Tristan da Cunha in latitude 37 by 8 south, longitude 12 by 8 west. This group, now so well known, and which consists of 3 circular islands, was first discovered by the Portuguese and was visited afterward by the Dutch in 1643 and by the French in 1767. The 3 islands together form a triangle and are distant from each other about 10 miles, there being fine open passages between. The land in all of them is very high, especially in Tristan da Cunha, properly so called. This is the largest of the group, being 15 miles in circumference and so elevated that it can be seen in clear weather at the distance of 80 or 90 miles. A part of the land toward the north rises more than 1,000 feet perpendicularly from the sea. A tableland at this height extends back nearly to the center of the island, and from this tableland arises a lofty cone like that of Tenerife. The lower half of this cone is clothed with trees of good size, but very upper region is barren rock, usually hidden among the clouds, and covered with snow during the greater part of the year. There are no shoals or other dangers about the island, the shores being remarkably bold and the water deep. On the northwestern coast is a bay, which is a beach of black sand, where a landing with boats can be easily effected, provided there be a southerly wind. Plenty of excellent water may be here readily procured. Also, cod and other fish may be taken with hook and line. The place they're describing is interesting. I don't know where that is on the map or what it is. I need to go look. I don't know. The next island in point of size and the most westwardly of the group is that called the Inaccessible. Its precise situation is 37 by 17 south latitude, longitude 12 by 24 west. It is 7 or 8 miles in circumference, and on all sides presents a forbidding and precipitous aspect. Its top is perfectly flat, and the whole region is sterile, nothing growing upon it except a few stunted shrubs. Nightingale Island, the smallest and most southerly, is in latitude 37 by 26 south, longitude 12 by 12 west. Off its southern extremity is a high ledge of rocky islets. A few also of a similar appearance are seen to the northeast. The ground is irregular and sterile, and a deep valley partially separates it. The shores of these islands abound, and in proper season with sea lions, sea elephants, the hare and fur seal, together with a great variety of oceanic birds. Whales are also plentiful in their vicinity. Owing to the ease with which these various animals were here formerly taken, the group has been much visited since its discovery. The Dutch and the French frequented it at a very early period. In 1790, Captain Patten of the ship Industry of Philadelphia made Tristan da Cunha, where he remained 7 months, from August 1790 to April 1791, for the purpose of collecting sealskins. In this time he gathered no less than 5,600, and said that he would have had no difficulty in loading a large ship with oil in 3 weeks. Upon his arrival he found no quadrupeds, with the exception of a few wild goats. The island now abounds with all our most valuable domestic animals, which have been introduced by subsequent navigators. I keep burping or something. That's weird. I believe it was not long after Captain Patten's visit to the Captain Colquhoun of the American brig Betsy, touched at the largest of the islands for the purpose of refreshment. He planted onions, potatoes, cabbages, and a great many other vegetables, an abundance of which is now to be met with. In 1811, a Captain Haywood in the Nereus visited Tristan. He found there 3 Americans who were residing upon the island to prepare sealskins and oil. One of these men was named Jonathan Lambert, and he called himself the sovereign of the country. He had cleared and cultivated about 60 acres of land and turned his attention to raising the coffee plant and sugarcane, with which he had been furnished by the American minister at Rio de Janeiro. This settlement, however, was finally abandoned, and in 1817 the islands were taken possession of by the British government, who sent a detachment for that purpose from the Cape of Good Hope. They did not, however, retain them long, but upon the evacuation of the country as a British possession, 2 or 3 English families took up their residence there independently of the government. On the 25th of March, 1824, the Berwick, Captain Geoffrey, from London to Van Diemen's Land, arrived at the place, where they found an Englishman of the name of Glass, formerly a corporal in the British artillery. He claimed to be supreme governor of the islands and had under his control 21 men and 3 women. He gave a very favorable account of the salubrity of the climate and of the productiveness of the soil. The population occupied themselves chiefly in collecting sealskins and sea elephant oil, with which they traded to the Cape of Good Hope, Glass owing a small schooner. At the period of our arrival, the governor was still a resident, but his little community had multiplied, there being 56 persons upon Tristan, besides a smaller settlement of 7 on Nightingale Island. We had no difficulty in procuring almost every kind of refreshment which we required. Sheep, hogs, bullocks, rabbits, poultry, goats, fish in great variety, and vegetables were abundant. Having come to anchor close in with the large island in 18 fathoms, we took all we wanted on board very conveniently. Captain Guy also purchased of Glass 500 sealskins and some ivory. We remained here a week, during which prevailing winds were from the northward and westward, and the weather somewhat hazy. On the 5th of November, we made sail to the southward and westward, with the intention of having a thorough search for a group of islands called the Auroras, respecting whose existence a great diversity of opinion has existed. How about that? Let's mark that page for good measure. These islands are said to have been discovered as early as 1762 by the commander of the ship Aurora. In 1790, Captain Manuel de Oyarudo in the ship Princess, belonging to the Royal Philippine Company, sailed, as he asserts, directly among them. In 1794, the Spanish corvette Atrevida went with the determination of ascertaining their precise situation, and in a paper published by the Royal Hydrographical Society of Madrid in the year 1809, the following language is used respecting this expedition.
The corvette Atrevida practiced in their immediate vicinity from the 21st to the 27th of January all the necessary observations and measured by chronometers the difference of longitude between these islands and the port of Soledad in the Manillas. The islands are 3. They are very nearly in the same meridian. The center one is rather low, and the other 2 may be seen at 9 leagues distance.
The observations made on board the Atrevida give the following results as the precise situation of each island. The most northern is in latitude 52 degrees by 37 by 24 south. longitude 47 by 43 by 15 west. The middle one in latitude 53 degrees to 40 south, longitude 47 by 55 by 15 west, and the most southern in latitude 53 by 15 by 22 south, longitude 47, 57 by 15 west. On the 27th of January 1820, Captain James Weddell of the British Navy sailed from Staten Land, also in search of the auroras. He reports that, having made the most diligent search and passed not only immediately over the spots indicated by the commander of the Atrevida, but in every direction throughout the vicinity of these spots, he could discover no indication of land. These conflicting statements have induced other navigators to look out for the islands, and strange to say, while some have sailed through every inch of sea where they are supposed to lie without finding them, there have been not a few who declare positively that they have seen them, and even been close in within their shores. It was Captain Guy's intention to make every exertion within his power to settle the question so oddly in dispute. And there we have a footnote. Thank you, Richie. That I enjoyed that. I was waiting for anything in quotation marks to use. You like my new disguise? Now I can be 3 characters at once. Boop, boop, and me. I love it. Okay, the footnote reads, among the vessels which at various times have professed to meet with the auroras may be mentioned the ship San Miguel in 1769, the ship Aurora in 1774, the brig Pearl in 1779, and the ship Dolores in 1790. They all agree in giving the mean latitude 53 degrees south. We kept on our course between the south and west with variable weather until the 20th of the month, when we found ourselves on the debated ground, being in latitude 53 by 15 south, longitude 47 by 58 west. That is to say, very nearly upon the spot indicated as the situation of the most southern of the group. Not perceiving any sign of land, we continued to the westward in the parallel of 53 degrees south as far as the meridian of 53 degrees west. We then stood to the north as far as the parallel of 52 degrees south, when we turned to the eastward and kept our parallel by double altitudes, morning and evening, and meridian altitudes of the planets and moon. Having thus gone eastwardly to the meridian of the western coast of Georgia, we kept that meridian until we were in the latitude from which we set out. We then took diagonal courses throughout the entire extent of sea circumscribed, keeping a lookout constantly at the masthead, and repeating our examination with the greatest care for a period of 3 weeks, during which the weather was remarkably pleasant and fair, with no haze whatsoever. Of course, we were thoroughly satisfied that, whatever islands might have existed in this vicinity at any former period, no vestige of them remained at the present day. Since my return home, I find that the same ground was traced over, with equal care, in 1822 by Captain Johnson of the American schooner Henry and by Captain Morrell in the American schooner Wasp, in both cases with the same result as in our own. That is the conclusion of chapter 15. It is 1:19. I think I will continue and do chapter 16 as well. But we are going to have another little puff puff. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Make you nice and sleepy to hear a bedtime story? It does me. I listen to something soothing, although some nights I fall asleep listening to something educational. And then I have weird dreams. Last night was one such evening. And my back hurts. You know what? I gotta stretch for just a moment. I will be right back. Enjoy the music. I was muted. Sorry about that. We're back and ready to continue. Sorry. I didn't want outside noises to come into play, so I shut off my mic for a moment. Apologies, my friends. And let us rearrange just a tiny bit here. That ready? Actually, how about right there? It had been chapter 16. Here we go. It had been Captain Guy's original intention, after satisfying himself about the auroras, to proceed through the Strait of Magellan and up along the western coast of Patagonia. But information received at Tristan da Cunha induced him to steer to the southward, in the hope of falling in with some small islands said to lie about the parallel of 60 south, longitude 41 by 20 west. In the event of his not discovering these lands, he designed, should the season prove favorable, to push on toward the pole. Accordingly, on the 12th of December, we made sail in that direction. On the 18th, we found ourselves about the station indicated by glass, and cruised for 3 days in that neighborhood without finding any traces of the islands he had mentioned. On the 21st, the weather being unusually pleasant, we again made sail to the southward, with the resolution of penetrating in that course as far as possible. Before entering upon this portion of my narrative, it may be as well, for the information of those readers who have paid little attention to the progress of discovery in these regions, to give some brief account of the very few attempts at reaching the southern pole which have hitherto been made. Okay, please do. That of Captain Cook was the first of which we have any distinct account. In 1772, he sailed to the south in the Resolution, accompanied by Lieutenant Furneaux in the Adventure. In December, he found himself as far as the 58th parallel of southern latitude, and in the longitude 26 by 57 east. Here he met with narrow fields of ice, about 8 or 10 inches thick, and running northwest and southeast. This ice was in large cakes, and usually it was packed so closely that the vessel had great difficulty in forcing a passage. At this period, Captain Cook supposed, from the vast number of birds to be seen, and from other indications, that he was in the near vicinity of land. He kept on to the southward, the weather being exceedingly cold, until he reached the 64th parallel, in longitude 38 by 14 east. Here he had mild weather with gentle breezes for 5 days, the thermometer being at 36. In January 1773, the vessels crossed the Antarctic Circle, but did not succeed in penetrating much farther, for upon reaching latitude 67 by 15, they found all further progress impeded by an immense body of ice, extending all along the southern horizon as far as the eye could reach. This ice was of every variety, and some large floes of it, miles in extent, formed a compact mass, rising 18 or 20 feet above the water. It being late in the season, and no hope entertaining of rounding these obstructions, Captain Cook now reluctantly turned to the northward. Yeah, right? We can't sail freely down there, can we, without questioning? Or can we? Because it'd be fun as fuck to try, wouldn't it? There's something in my eye, I'm sorry. Give me just a moment. What the French? Ow. Ow. Yeah, how... This guy sailed along an ice wall? How far? I didn't quite pick up. I'm kind of like just letting the numbers flow out of my mouth without being able to keep track of them while I read. So I'll go back through, but it's interesting. In the November following, he renewed his search in the Antarctic. In latitude 59 by 40, he met with a strong current setting to the southward. In December, when the vessels were in latitude 67.31 longitude, 142 by 54 west, the cold was excessive, with heavy gales and fog. Here also birds were abundant, the albatross, the penguin, and the peterel especially. In latitude 70 by 23, some large islands of ice were encountered, and shortly afterward, the clouds to the southward were observed to be of a snowy whiteness, indicating the vicinity of field ice. In latitude 71 by 10, longitude 106 by 54 west, the navigators were stopped as before by an immense frozen expanse, which filled the whole area of the southern horizon. The northern edge of this expanse was ragged and broken, so firmly wedged together as to be utterly impassable, and extending about a mile to the southward. Behind it, the frozen surface was comparatively smooth for some distance, until terminated in the extreme background by gigantic ranges of ice mountains, the one towering above the other. Captain Cook concluded that this vast field reached the southern pole or was joined to a continent. Mr. J. N. Reynolds, whose great exertions and perseverance have at length succeeded in getting set on foot a national expedition, partly for the purpose of exploring these regions, thus speaks of the attempt of the Resolution.
We are not surprised that Captain Cook was unable to go beyond 71 by 10, but we are astonished that he did attain that point on the meridian of 106 by 54 west longitude. Palmer's Land lies south of the Shetland, latitude 64 degrees, and tends to the southward and westward farther than any navigator has yet penetrated. Cook was standing for this land when his progress was arrested by the ice, which we apprehend must always be the case in that point, and so early in the season as the 6th of January, and we should not be surprised if a portion of the ice mountains described was attached to the main body of Palmer's Land, or to some other portion of land lying farther to the southward and westward.
Interesting. Ha ha, forever love. Good to see you, darling. Ah, fucking shoulder, man. 6th of January is mentioned there again. That's interesting. That is number 106. It's on the Mad Hatter's hat. Coffee. I think this is southward. Where's my place? I got confused because I had to put a mask on. In 1803, Captains Krusenstern and Lusowski were, that's how I'm going to pronounce those names, were dispatched by Alexander of Russia for the purpose of circumnavigating the globe. In endeavoring to get south, they made no farther than 59 by 58 in longitude, 70 by 15 west. They here met with strong currents setting eastwardly. Whales were abundant, but they saw no ice. In regard to this voyage, Mr. Reynolds observes that if Krusenstern had arrived where he did earlier in the season, he must have encountered ice. It was March when he reached the latitude specified. The winds prevailing as they do from the southward and westward had carried the floes, aided by currents, into that icy region bounded on the north by Georgia, east by Sandwich Land and the South Orkneys, and west by the South Shetland Islands. In 1822, Captain James Weddell of the British Navy, with 2 very small vessels, penetrated farther to the south than any previous navigator, and this too without encountering extraordinary difficulties. He states that although he was frequently hemmed in by ice before reaching the 72nd parallel, yet upon attaining it not a particle was to be discovered, and that, upon arriving at the latitude of 74 by 15, no fields and only 3 islands of ice were visible. It is somewhat remarkable that, although vast flocks of birds were seen, and other usual indications of land, and although south of the Shetlands, unknown coasts were observed from the masthead tending southwardly, Weddell discourages the idea of land existing in the polar regions of the south. Is that so? On the 11th of January, 1823, Captain Benjamin Morrell of the American schooner Wasp sailed from Kerguelen's Land with the view of penetrating as far south as possible. On the 1st of February, he found himself in latitude 64 by 52 south, longitude 118 by 27 east. The following passage is extracted from his journal of that date.
The wind soon freshened to an 11-knot breeze, and we embraced this opportunity of making to the west, being, however, convinced that the farther we went south beyond latitude 64 degrees, the less ice was to be apprehended. And we steered a little bit to the southward until we crossed the Antarctic Circle, and were in latitude 69 by 15 east. In this latitude, there was no field ice, and very few islands in sight. Under the date of March 14th, I find also this entry. The sea was now entirely free of field ice, and there were not more than a dozen ice islands in sight. At the time, the temperature of the air and water was at least 13 degrees higher, more mild, than we had ever found it between the parallels of 60 and 62 south. We were now at latitude 70 by 14 south, and the temperature of the air was 47, and that of the water 44. In this situation, I found the variation to be 14 by 27 easterly per azimuth. ... I have several times passed within the Antarctic Circle on different meridians, and have uniformly found the temperature, both of the air and water, to become more and more mild the farther I advanced beyond the 65th degree of south latitude, and that the variation decreases in the same proportion, while north of this latitude, say between 60 and 65 south, we frequently had great difficulty in finding a passage for the vessel between the immense and almost innumerable ice islands, some of which were from 1 to 2 miles in circumference and more than 500 feet above the surface of the water.
Being nearly destitute of fuel and water and without proper instruments, it being also late in the season, Captain Morrell was now obliged to put back without attempting any farther progress to the westward, although an entirely open sea lay before him. He expresses the opinion that, had not these overruling considerations obliged him to retreat, he could have penetrated, if not to the pole itself, at least to the 85th parallel. I have given his ideas respecting these matters somewhat at length, that the reader may have an opportunity of seeing how far they were borne out by my own subsequent experience. In 1831, Captain Briscoe, in the employ of the Messrs. Enderby, whale ship owners of London, sailed in the brig Lively for the South Seas, accompanied by the cutter Tula. On the 28th of February, being in latitude 66 degrees by 30 south, longitude 47 by 13 east, he descried land and clearly discovered through the snow the black peaks of a this is in quotations.
Clearly discovered through the snow the black peaks of a range of mountains running east-southeast.
He remained in this neighborhood during the whole of the following month, but was unable to approach the coast nearer than within 10 leagues, owing to the boisterous state of the weather. Finding it impossible to make further discovery during this season, he returned northward to winter in Van Diemen's Land. In the beginning of 1832, he again proceeded southwardly, and on the 4th of February, land was seen to the southeast in latitude 67 by 15 longitude 69 by 29 degrees west. This was soon found to be an island near the headland of the country he had first discovered. On the 21st of the month, he succeeded in landing on the latter and took possession of it in the name of William IV, calling it Adelaide's Island, in honor of the English Queen. These particulars being made known to the Royal Geographical Society of London, the conclusion was drawn by that body
that there is a continuous tract of land extending from 47 by 30 east to 69 by 20 west longitude, running the parallel of from 66 to 67 degrees south latitude.
In respect to this conclusion, Mr. Reynolds observes,
in the correctness of it, we by no means concur, nor do the discoveries of Briscoe warrant any such interference. It was within these limits that Weddell proceeded south on a meridian to the east of Georgia, Sandwich Land, and the South Orkney and Shetland Islands.
My own experience will be found to testify most directly to the falsity of the conclusion arrived at by the Society. These are the principal attempts which have been made at penetrating to a high southern latitude, and it will now be seen that there remained, previous to the voyage of the Jane, nearly 300 degrees of longitude in which the Antarctic Circle had not been crossed at all. Of course, a wide field lay before us for discovery, and it was with feelings of most intense interest that I heard Captain Guy express his resolution of pushing boldly to the southward. That concludes that chapter. So, let's see how much further we have to go of this story. Several pages. And where did we begin? I think that is good for today. I feel done. Yep, I just feel done. And I'm losing the sunlight. So, let's push back the easel without dropping a glass off the edge of the desk. And I would like to thank everyone who stopped in today to say hello during story time. I hope your day is going as beautifully sunshiny as possible. I will sparkle you up some rainbows and shoot them your way. Hope they land squarely in your path and you see the magical path before you. Clap if you believe in fairies. Never give up, never surrender. Aloha, hola, and all the many greetings of love I can offer to my friends forever. Love, Dean Kendall, Richie, JP. I know did I see you in there? Dean Kendall. Who else we got? Forever love. Do 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 do. I'm a scrolling. I'm not scrolling. I saw London McLovin was in the house. Yo, what up? And yes, I knew just JP was there. Ethereal light being, you darling creature. Thank you for stopping by. Who else did we have a little visit from? Skull Asylum, salute. And I believe that is everyone. If I missed anyone, greetings in the future, mateys. Remember, jump on board, taste the rainbow, take no shit, love everlasting, and I'll see you later. Bye.